My name's Jeff, and I'm a techie. You probably have experienced some of the technology that I've played a part in developing. Every one of you, I'm sure, knows about Wi-Fi. So I was involved in the creation of Wi-Fi. Every one of you probably has a smartphone that connects over 4G LTE technology today. I was involved in the development of those technologies. If you've had the opportunity to go to a Walt Disney theme park, either in California or Florida, you have experienced some of the work that I've done at those parks. However, it's all wireless, so you haven't seen any of it. But it's helped to, behind the scenes, improve your overall experience. And today I work as a writer, as a consultant, as an industry analyst on emerging technologies, so things like cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, 5G, mobile communications, Internet of Things. Those are all kind of the playgrounds that I get to work in. And while these have all been very much driven by creating a new capability, so Wi-Fi actually came about as a way to not have to have the IT teams in the workplace keep putting out more and more Ethernet cables as they built out their organization. But look how we use it today. It's quite the opposite, right? It's there certainly in the workplace, but there's a Starbucks around the corner. I'm sure this building is lit up for Wi-Fi as well. And what I quickly realized is that it's really not about the technology. It's about creating an experience, doing something and enabling the capability that you didn't have before. And so my talk today is going to be exactly about that and how we use technology in the workplace. However, I'm not going to be here telling you a bunch of buzzwords about technology because you're going the wrong direction if that's how you're starting. Now, in each of your organizations, no matter how large or how small or how distributed it is around the globe, I'm willing to bet that there's somebody in your organization has come to you and said, oh, did you hear about this new cool thing we can do with this capability like maybe AI? And it can help us find the best employees or the next employees. Or maybe it'll allow us to be able to sort through 1,000 resumes, for example, on the hiring side. Or maybe it'll somehow enhance our learning and development capability. That's chasing the shiny object, right? That's not going and looking at what the needs of your business are. There have been some other speakers today who eloquently talked about the skills gaps, challenges that exist, kind of the need to not continue to iterate on the practices that we have. And I don't think anybody should necessarily apologize for where we are today. I think they were all the course of action that everyone needed to take, but it is an opportunity to stop and say, how can we blow it up, right? What should we carry forward and what should we not? And so my focus today is on, rather than saying which technology should we be adopting in our organization, we should be shifting that discussion towards what is the desired outcome. If a physician told you that your risk of developing a particular disease was 83%, and here are maybe some things you could do, and your risk may go down to 75%. What is that telling you? It's maybe giving you a little bit of optimism or maybe a path forward to extend your life, but hopefully not. What if you walk out and the bus hits you tomorrow, right? That wasn't part of that prediction. So we've got to stop looking at things like just kind of those risk factors, and putting people into buckets, and be thinking about how we can actually be looking at what we want to achieve. Do we want to be able to say, to extend a person's life from a medical perspective, for example? Are there ways that we can even start looking at using technology to get in front of that and create personalized medicine? So at birth, we understand what types of foods you should focus on and which ones you should avoid, to be able to give you the best optimal path in life that you can have. What are some of those desired outcomes in an HR context? You could look at things like speeding the onboarding process. Today it's a fairly laborious process, often with a lot of paper and forms and time and back and forth to get it into the system. There's opportunities today to be able to take that onboarding process and make it something that before the person walks in the door for the first time, that all of that can be done. And it can even be done on a platform of their choice. If they want to use a personal computer to do that, so be it. If they want to use a tablet or a smartphone and they don't want to do Word documents, they want to use email or they want to use iMessage. Should they be able to do that? If the capability is there, and certainly the technology is there to be able to allow for all of those needs. And even as Emily was describing before me, what about providing it not just in a written form that can be consumed on a device, but providing the elements that would allow for it to be accessible for people who may not have sighted access, who may need to have a voiceover or may need to be able to see it in a large form. The second is enabling employee self-access. So self-service is being able to, how many times have you had a question come up from an employee at 2 o'clock on Sunday morning, right? And they need to get some paperwork or they need to understand a process or procedure. Being able to actually drive closure on that anytime, anywhere, again, through any device. Reducing the training costs for systems and processes. I'm surprised frequently by how long organizations hang on to their systems over time. Finding happy and long-term employees and freeing up personnel time for complex and higher value tasks. Again, this comes all the way back to being able to create new experiences. So a few things I suggest here would be to ditch legacy systems, or as eloquently said earlier, burn them down. And with that, the associated learning and development costs. Empower knowledge workers to be able to make decisions, push that knowledge out to the workers themselves, rather than holding it up in process and procedure. And looking at inclusion regardless of age. I'll show an example of what I mean by that. In thinking about the future of work, you want to be able to ask yourself about how workers will engage and interact with the organization and with each other in the coming years. Will they follow more thinking of like the gig economy, where you've got multiple employers at the same time? Will they need to access your company's data? Will they only be able to do that on site, or will they be able to do that anywhere on any device? Being in artificial intelligence, one of the things that I do in artificial intelligence is produce a conference. And one of the things that's for industries and for enterprise, and one of the most commonly asked questions up front is this concern about being replaced. And that's everybody at every role, including chief executive types of roles. And are they going to be replaced? Oxford University has done studies in 2017 and repeated again in 2018. They identified 3 particular types of tasks that workers perform that at this point cannot be replaced by some form of automation. That includes tasks related to perception and manipulation, those related to creative intelligence, such as producing original ideas, and tasks related to social intelligence. I'll give 3 quick examples of how these are manifesting within organizations today. Internal Revenue Service, they're known for their rapid response time, their amazing customer service, and being the ultimate resource on all things tax, right? I'm glad some of you snickered. This is humorous. That's not truly what they're known for, right? But maybe I'm sure there are departments within the IRS who absolutely believe that to be the case. But let's be realistic. They are an organization that's based on a bunch of forms and process. They in fact have more than 5,000 forms in their organization, and they have a very large team of people who take consumer and business inquiries and have to go figure out which form is the right one. Guess who's the most successful employees in that department? The ones who have been there the longest, because they know past experiences about what they're looking for. So that's a tough job to crack into, but it's not a great use of the capabilities that these workers have. So they are using natural language processing, which is a form of artificial intelligence. It's processing all of the words that have been captured in all of their forms and all of the inquiries they've received over the past 10 years. And from this, they can now pass that query into a system, and it will actually come back. Think of it like a search engine for the internet, except it's only on their forms. It'll come back and say, here are the 10 or 15 most relevant. It also then has a feedback loop, so whichever one is ultimately used, that knowledge goes back into the system. So this is allowing them to not only make their employees more effective, they now also have an understanding of the conversations of what they're being asked. So it's allowing them to remain relevant to their audience, so that as new tax laws come out, new types of organizations are formed, and new process exists, they in turn can turn that back around and be viewed as the tax authority. The U.S. Army, as a means of recruitment of new service members, has worked to continue to rebrand itself and embrace more culture and society. So to be able to do this effectively, to complement the walk-in recruitment centers that the U.S. Army has, they have added a mobile app that allows you to basically be able to ask virtual recruiter questions. And what they learned from this exercise was that the types of questions that are asked on that app are not the same ones that are asked in person. Most of them have to do with a fear of being judged. So questions like, what are the sleeping arrangements in the barracks? Is it okay that I'm Muslim? Can I join the army? How will I be treated? And from this, they've not only been able to modify their answers, but they've been able, again, to now understand who their future audience is. They can remain more relevant. They can upfront be prepared and train their recruiters how to be able to answer those questions. And the last example is a group within NASA called Shared Services Center. This is where HR sits. It's a commonality, a common HR function across all the NASA branches and functions. They've been in this role for about 13 years, and so they automate process transactions, manipulating data, communicating with all the digital systems that exist across the organization. They have 4 software, they're called bots. Think of it as like a small script that automates the work that's being done across their agency, and one of the 9 bots that one of the 4 bots is an HR bot. And so they work on things like fund distribution and procurement. Not only has this worked out, it's overcome the fear of these workers who thought, maybe my job's at risk and could be automated by a piece of software. When in fact, because the employees were involved in the process and the decision making and how is this working, where is it not working, those employees came up with 300 additional ideas to scale the original 4 into their workforce. And so it's not replacing workers, it's allowing those workers to be able to do more challenging work than they've been able to do in a kind of a repetitive way to this point. So in summary, the future of work is absolutely going to be facilitated by a lot more technology than it has even in the recent years. But it's also not about the technology. It's a change that organizations can make to embrace data. It's about augmenting human intelligence rather than replacing the workers, and takes a change in culture to thrive with ambiguous outcomes and how decisions will be made going forward. So with that, I'll go ahead and thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.